everybody. Welcome to another Quran study. Today we'll be reading from Surah 6, starting at verse 6. Let's all seek refuge in God from Satan the rejected. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Have they not seen how many generations before them we have annihilated? We established them on earth more than we did for you, and we showered them with blessings generously, and we provided them with flowing streams. We then annihilated them because of their sins, and we substituted another generation in their place. Even if we sent down to them a physical book written on paper and they touched it with their hands, those who disbelieve would have said, "This is no more than clever magic." So just looking at this verse, we're being told about the preceding generations before us that it's always going to be the same case. For the current generation or future generations to come, the consequence of disbelief, and especially rejecting the miracles, and as the generation and community we're really going to witness today in this generation and time period, or era, I should say, is going to be the Arabs, because they rejected a messenger, after a period of time where messengers did not come, so it's a true blessing to have the Quran's 19 mathematical miracle as well as a clarifying messenger to, purify and help us, because it's we're a very fortunate generation to have this. So their retribution is going to be very severe. So even in their in this Quran, they have their own, they have these examples they can look at. Everybody can look at these examples, and so we they're every community, and even people on an individual basis, can be annihilated because of their sins, and they're going to have other generations substituted in their place, so, and also the next verse 7 is a good reminder that, even if you give these people formidable proofs, things that they've never seen before, and, almost unimaginable things, they're still not going to believe. And if they do, witness these things, they're just going to attribute it to magic, as we see, how they say this is no more than clever magic, or they're going to say, insults about the prophets or messengers. So, this also lets us know that, we do our part, bring the message to people, but, the ultimate guidance is up to God, and it's whether these people want to be guided or not. So if someone's really wanted to be guided and is sincerely interested in this information, God will help them. They also said, if only an angel could come down with him. Had we sent an angel, the whole matter would have been terminated and they would no longer be respited. Requirements of the test. Had we sent an angel, we would have sent him in the form of a man, and we would have kept them just as confused as they are confused now. So, this is a false claim that they make, if only an angel would come down, they probably still wouldn't believe. And maybe they would at this point, perhaps, because if we look at the other part of the rest of the verse, the matter would have been terminated. So, maybe backtracking. If we see an angel, of course, everybody is going to believe no matter what, which would negate the test, because it's the whole test of free will, believing in God, not seeing, believing in the unseen without seeing, physically these things, like the messenger of the covenant mentioned, I think, in one of the audios, the Night of Destiny, requires us to use our logic and our intellect and what God has given us. The test requires these things. You have to believe in the unseen as well as the seen. And so when something like this would happen, the whole matter would just be terminated. So, I mean, thank God, this isn't the case, because then we wouldn't, maybe if we weren't submitters at the time, we wouldn't have, we wouldn't have any more respite. So, thank God it's not, for us, for those who are still going through the test and are striving and want to believe. And of course, even if an angel was sent down in the form of a man, these people would have been just, kept just as confused as they are confused now. So they wouldn't, I guess, with these verses, about their confusion, they're not going to, whether it comes as an angel, whether the person comes as an angel or a man, they're still going to be just as confused as they are now, and have doubts about the hereafter. But the requirements of the test, even if they would have been sent as an angel, it would have been sent in the form of a man. So these people, regardless of what type of proof comes down to these people, they're still going to remain heedless, right? They're still going to remain confused, to their own, detriment and destruction. Verse 10, messengers before you have been ridiculed. It is those who mocked them who suffer the consequences of their ridiculing. Say, roam the earth and note the consequence for the rejectors. So we've seen this, this is inevitable, and this is also, something that happens to every single messenger, and also, it happens to the believers. But the real suffering, I mean, striving in the cause of God and going through these things is actually good. Because it's going to make you stronger, and it's also, there's different ranks for these types of things, because these things are very difficult. Especially, the types of things and threats that these people have made against messengers and prophets, and so we know that the people who mock and the people who do these things, they're going to be the ones that are suffering. And I mean, we have other verses about these people in hell where their ridiculing and mocking is going to come back to haunt them. So I mean, just imagine how terrible that's going to be. And they deserve this too, because of how evil they're being, and they don't want to change either. And verse 11, roam the earth and note the consequence for the rejectors. So it's always going to be the same consequence for the rejectors, and generations, communities, and even individual people. People, there's no such thing as special treatment, and we know this especially so, and this is such a big deal about intercession. If Muhammad couldn't intercede on behalf of his own kin, what makes people think that he can intercede for anybody else, or Jesus can intercede? Like, if there was such thing, which there isn't, as that intercession in that sense, his own kin would get would be able to get that. So I mean, and that's not even the case. So what makes these people think that there's more special? Or we also have the example of Abraham and even Noah. So the rejectors is always going to have the same consequence, and rejecting this Quran, rejecting the miracle. If you don't believe in the Quran alone, if you're upholding other sources, from the Bible as religious guidance, or hadith, such as circumcision, you're not going to make it. You're going to end up in hell. And that's just a fact. And, as the messenger said, when you're trying to, when you're telling these people these things, he gives the example of, like, you use different means, if you see somebody running towards a ditch or a cliff, you're going to say, you're going to, speak to them. And then if they don't hear you, you're going to get a little bit louder, But at some point, eventually, after all measures have been exhausted, you just leave them be because they disbelieve in the message. They disbelieve. They're not satisfied with the Quran alone. And it's more than that. They're unappreciative for what we have. So that's why they go to other sources, because they're greedy and unappreciative. If you really look at these people, this book isn't enough. They have to have these traditions. They have to uphold things from the days of ignorance. It's not enough. They're not grateful for what they have. They don't actually believe in the hereafter. People who follow innovations and make prohibitions and things like circumcision, because if they did, they would, at least turn reverent and look and check. But they're so sure about their innovation that they're not even going to give the light of day to examine and listen. And it should be very simple too, for people. But I guess it also points to the fact that Satan is, we know he's man's most ardent enemy, and how sneaky and cunning, he is, and clever, like in a sinister way. I mean, clever meaning he's not intelligent, but like in the sense of being cunning and deceiving. So we ourselves, having made it this far, we should never for one moment underestimate him, and we have to constantly seek refuge. The messenger, I was just listening to something, it was in a sermon, I think a video, he's talking about verse 97 and 98. I think those are the verses of Surah 23. He said it's saying that 1,000 times a day isn't enough. So what does that tell us? How important, the emphasis is placed on seeking refuge and God, from the sneaky whisperers. Say, to whom belongs everything in the heavens and earth? Say to God, He has decreed that mercy is His attribute. He will surely summon you all on the day of resurrection, which is inevitable. The ones who lose their souls are those who disbelieve. So we can say these are things we can say to people. I mean, mashallah, we're really given the best things to talk to people about, and or to, when we're giving them information, or even if it's just a short debate or something. Because there's even people that think that, I couldn't believe, but that think that Jesus created trees and stuff, and it's like, well, what about these new trees? I asked this person, like a year ago, I said, I saw a post, and I knew this person, and I asked her, I was like, what about the trees that just grew like last year? I said, Jesus isn't here. He isn't like monitoring or taking care of. I was like, where is, you don't even know where he is. I mean, because you don't probably believe, I didn't say that, but he's not even here to take care of the birds that were just born, 6 months ago, or the trees, and they just, they're just, usually they don't say too much, or they don't, and that's not the point, is about what they're saying. The point is that they would, you wanna, help them see, and to, follow the path of God alone. That's the whole point of why we talk to people. We try to debate with these people in a good manner, or even just ask a simple question, because I sent him some verses, or sent her some verses, but say to God, He has decreed that mercy is attribute. So and the ones who lose their souls are those who disbelieve. So those who disbelieve in God, and disbelieve in the Quran, the practices, that don't develop their soul, that, also nullify their contact prayers, for example, by not doing them correctly, or, even, possibly praying at the wrong time, or coming up with these innovations, like we've seen before with this other group of people, with the afternoon prayer time. I mean, if you really think about it, these people just want to be their own gods. Like, literally, it's not too far from that, because they want to have their own truths. But essentially, they want to tell you that it's this way, and this is how it is, regardless of what God is telling us. Quran alone, what the messenger comes with. There's 5 daily meals, 5 contact prayers, but and the people who follow them literally take these people as their lords and masters. So, and if they don't change, we see, the consequences for these people, not just in this life, but in the hereafter. So the best thing we can do is to remind these people, because hell is so bad, even, we know people are bad, but hell is so bad, it's hard to, uh, it's, I mean, just, I don't think these people, that are doing these things maybe have an idea, or else they would turn reverent and examine these things, But to him belongs everything that dwells in the night and the day, and he is the hearer, the knower. Say, shall I accept other than God as Lord and Master when he is the initiator of the heavens and the earth, and he feeds but is not fed? Say, I am commanded to be the most devoted submitter and do not be an idol worshiper. Say, I fear if I disobey my Lord the retribution of an awesome day. Whoever is spared the retribution on that day has attained his mercy, and this is the greatest triumph. God be glorified, so that's really that's the best thing we, striving to attain God's mercy and even praying for these things, asking, in this life as well, of course, that he has mercy on us on that, day that's so heavy. And so just looking back at verse 14, God is the only one who provides. He feeds, but he's not fed. You know, so naturally we have the nice cool, if I'm saying that right, to say I'm commanded to be the most devoted submitter and do not be an idol worshiper. So that's what our goal, and that's what we have to attain this, be the most devoted submitter as we can possible, and then do not be an idol worshiper. So if you're an idol worshiper, or if you fall into worshiping idols, or your ego, or worshiping any of these, your job, your spouse, other people, money, these examples of the common gods that are mentioned in the Quran, like we have in Surah 18, people, the owner of the garden who set up, his property as an idol. These things can become our idols, and, Satan is aware that we're aware of these things, and so he'll look at each one of us individually and try to pinpoint our weaknesses, and that's why it's so crucial that everyone, I mean, including myself, of course, we're aware of ourselves, and we ask God to help us to become more. We ask God to purify us, because there's things that cracks, like in our armor, so to speak. That that's exactly how the enemy, breaks in. If you look at like how wars are fought and how castles are, these quote unquote impenetrable castles, they just have to find a little bit of crack, a little crack in it, and that's where they start working. So that's really important why we have to, as we're told in the Quran, to examine ourselves, because we don't want to go, we want to make it to heaven, it's the greatest triumph, attaining God's mercy and not ever, having the perfect peace, having the perfect security, and being really rescued from this world, because we know this world is like a halfway house, so, and we have the nice verse from verse 15, I fear if I disobeyed my Lord the retribution of an awesome day. So it's a tremendous, and I mean, it's unimaginable what this day is going to be like. Even if we try to imagine, like even the people with, everyone has like very creative imaginations, but even if you try to exercise that, you still couldn't fathom what this day is going to be like. So all the more reason why we have to take everything extremely seriously, with ourselves, and imploring God to help us with these things, because only God can help us. And as we'll see in the next verse, only He controls the happiness. 17, only God controls happiness. if God touches you with adversity, none can relieve it except He. And if He touches you with a blessing, He's omnipotent. He is supreme over His creatures. He is the most wise, the cognizant. SubhanAllah. So God is running everything. So this, God is running everything. He also, He's doing everything. So even our happiness is controlled by God. And if we're touched with adversity, no one can relieve it except God. So if we end up, if Satan dupes us into seeking a human's help, which it's not to say we shouldn't seek other people's help. We should, these are ways that God can help us in the means. But, if we think that, this person at your work is somehow benefiting you, or even if you get some favor from some, police officer, that pulled you over or something, or it just could be some random anybody, or anything too, if you think it's a vitamin or something that's helping you, that's literally idol worship, and Satan is so clever, sometimes we get accustomed to, these, from the past and things, but this is what it means to remember God is running everything, and la quwwata illa billah, no one possesses power except God, so the vitamin doesn't work, it only works by God's leave because He's controlling, the substance and the molecules and the atoms in it and your cells as well. So, and same with the person who's talking to you, who's helping you with something, he's controlling their everything, so this is, thinking about it like this, it becomes easier. You start walking around. We really have to stay on ourselves because Satan is he always tries to distract people. That's one of his main tools is to keep people distracted from remembering these types of things. Quran, the whole Quran, and nothing but the Quran. 19. Say, whose testimony is the greatest? Say, God's. He is the witness between me and you that this Quran has been inspired to me to preach it to you and to whomever it reaches. Indeed, you bear witness that there are other gods beside God. Say, I do not testify as you do. There is only one God, and I disown your idolatry. So this one has a footnote. And for anybody listening to outside the study, or is that going to watch this, you really just ponder about, the circumcision as, Brother Suleiman has spent so much time on this subject and helping people realize that this is an innovation and working towards, striving in this cause, this is just from what, I've known and been told and seen, coming into submission, this is a very big deal, and this has caused a lot of division, exposed a lot of hypocrites that aren't satisfied with the Quran alone. And it's not even to say that these people, God is aware of the souls and, and the contents of these people, but, these people could be helped, but, even the people who took firm stands, you never know, but we're going to read the footnote because this is very important, so people listening, keep this in mind about what this verse is saying in regards to, upholding other sources in the Quran. This verse proclaims that the Quran as the only source of religious guidance. Those who uphold additional sources such as hadith and sunnah, lies which attribute to the prophet, are defined as idolaters. And this also includes, and it's in the video of the messenger, the Friday, Khutbah Friday sermon video, how to do that. There's also cultural traditions, biblical stuff. It's plain as day here. Any source other than the Quran as a religious source of guidance, with circumcision, it's all about religion. It has nothing to do with health. It never was about health to begin with. It got started over religion. So those who try to claim it's for health are just, lying to themselves. And even if you claim, it's for, even if you do try to claim it's for health, that's still super satanic. You don't go, these points have been driven home so many times, but for, just explanation purposes, we'll briefly cover them, but you don't go cut off, preemptively cut off parts of your body out of fear. And especially as the way, if you really believe in God's omnipotence and, his design, you would be happy, and you wouldn't, you're basically saying, you know better than the creator. And like, no, I'm the design. Like, this is, it's these functioning parts, so, even with that, the health aspect, but it's never been about health. It's always been about religious guidance. So it's as plain as day here. So, those who turn to the Quran and the distortions, those 10% of distortions, which most Christians follow in the Bible, they're setting up another idol than God. And, I think it's easier for these people to do this because so many other people are doing it. We see it on a massive scale. The people, even Christians, practicing it, because they think it's something that they're supposed to do or they're supposed to honor, the Jewish, these things, stuff I heard, I think from my parents or something, but they didn't even know why they're doing it. They're just doing it because everybody else is doing it. This is how most people think, and I've talked to enough people, family included, on why they do it. Because they're basically just following their parents, following these things blindly. Those to whom we have given the scripture recognize this as they recognize their own children. The ones who lose their souls are those who do not believe. So we're going to kind of speed things up. So yeah, the people, like when you recognize your children, it's your child, same with this book, you're going to realize that it's the truth from God, that this could only have come from God. Who is more evil than one who lies about God or rejects his revelations? The transgressors never succeed. So these are the most evil people, and if you're commanding people, and it's really Satan commanding idolatry and these innovations and harmful, devastating practices, painful practices. How is that from God? Into people's religion, you're really the most evil people if you're just following it, that's one thing. But if you're lying about it and saying God advocates things like circumcision, you're going to be, and you're not going to be in a good position on the day of judgment. So, this is for people to say this isn't a big deal. That's the exact type of thinking that literally got us all here, and that's the exact type of thinking that will have you rocketing to hell. Because if you don't think this is a big deal, you're not going to think anything's a big deal, And the fact of the matter is, even the smallest things is a real big deal. Like even Adam's weight, measured of things are a really big deal. Because how can you risk your hereafter? And why would you even want something like that small? Would you rather on your record or not on your record? Well, none of us would want that on our record. So, therefore we shouldn't. We're talking about eternity here too, so we don't. We want to be in, do as much as possible as we can for our soul, because time is time is very short here. We have a lot of time to, reflect, and we're given till the age of 40, but it goes by very quickly. Idol worshippers deny their idolatry on the day when we summon them. We will ask the idol worshippers, where are the idols you set up? Their disastrous response will be, by God, our Lord, we were never idol worshippers. Note how they lied to themselves and how the idols they invented have abandoned them. So they have a footnote. So for verse 23, now and forever the idol worshippers vehemently deny that they are idolaters. Yeah, so it's really a disastrous response for these people. But we see that they're going to deny their idolatry. Some of them listen to you, but we place veils in their hearts to prevent them from understanding, and deafness in their ears. Thus, no matter what kind of proof they see, they cannot believe. Thus, when they come to argue with you, the disbelievers say, these are tales from the past. Verse 28. This is because as soon as, oh no, we didn't get to that footnote. But, yeah, so when we've talked to people before, it could be about circumcision, it could be just about general, it could be about anything if they're atheists, agnostics, or idol worshiping Christians or Muslims. we're not supposed to, we need to remember these verses. It's very important because even if you show people these proofs or you're explaining the miracle to these people, some of them, shrug it off. Okay, big deal, and it's very perplexing. And then others, of course, will argue with you. And I'm sure we've all heard these things where they say these are tales from the past, or they say, oh, it's a copy from other scripture or something, which is not. It's the only book in the world. There's no other book that is mathematically composed. Like I was just listening to the messenger, and it's it's from God, and it gives us reassurance upon reassurance, and for the for this. They repel others from this Quran as they themselves stay away from it, and thus they only destroy themselves without perceiving. So yeah, this goes for anybody that is upholding other sources than the Quran, favoring hadith over, or false distortions or falsehood in the Bible, meaning specifically pointing out the distortions. If only you could see them when they face the hellfire, they would say, woe to us. Oh, we wish we could go back and never reject our Lord's revelations and join the believers. So this is, if these people on the verge now, they should, think like this now instead of wait until the hereafter to think like this, or say these things, and really it's, maybe they're probably too arrogant to do this, in this life. And they wanted to uphold or hang on to their idols, their beliefs, their false beliefs. As a matter of fact, they only say this because their secrets have been exposed. If they go back, they will commit exactly the same crimes. They are liars. So this, they say subconsciously, we live only this life, we will not be resurrected. So that's a human tragedy, the way to think like that. And that's why we see people acting the way they do, or people disbelieving in the truth that's come to them. This, so verse 28 footnote says, this is because as soon as we enter into our worldly dimension, we become totally unaware of events in the dimensions of souls where God and his angels and heaven and hell can be seen. Thus, the guilty will not change their behavior even after seeing that eternal dimension. So this is very interesting, because this, the guilty that see these things in this, in the dimension of souls, even after seeing these things, when they re-enter the worldly dimension, they become disbelievers. And that's because everyone, becomes totally unaware of events in the dimension of souls. So even after seeing these things, something's preventing them. They probably want to be disbelievers for some reason, and disbelieve in the truth. Like we know in the Quran, they hate the truth. They hate the fact that, the truth about God alone, the supreme creator, the most high, the most wise, this is basically what Satan thought. And we agree, as humans, we didn't make a firm stand. We were wishy-washy, and there's no room for any of this. Like, you have to make a firm stand on these things, even if you're in the minority. And this has been the case, too, throughout, we see throughout the Quran, throughout the previous scriptures, prophets, and messengers. They were never the majority. If they were the majority, but we know they're not. They were never in the majority. They're always the minority, and and the people who followed the majority were always against these people, and eventually they would, their great numbers, as we've seen throughout the Quran, it never helped them. They might, to them, it might provide some temporary comfort or solace, but it's just an illusion and a trap, because it's not even like that. The God is, and his angels are far greater in number than these people. If you could only see them when they stand before their Lord, he would say, is this not the truth? They would say, yes, by our Lord. He would say, you have incurred the retribution by your disbelief. Losers indeed are those who disbelieve in meeting God until the hour comes to them suddenly, then say, "We deeply regret wasting our lives in this world." They will carry loads of sins on their backs. What a miserable load. So, I mean, we're reading the verses now, like, of what these people are saying. I mean, imagine, like, in the days of ignorance and stuff, and, even before submission, or I mean, even if we step out of God's kingdom and make a mistake and we regret it, I mean, that regret, it feels so terrible. Like there's nothing worse. There's I mean, I say there's no worse feeling, but I guess it's dependent upon each individual. But I mean, the amount of regret on the day of judgment that these people are gonna have. So just reading these verses, why would you want to feel like that? So, naturally, a submitter who believes in the hereafter, and even despite, these people, these submitters, quote unquote submitters, just because they say or they walk amongst, actual submitters, but we know them by their works, as we're told. We know them by their fruit. If they're following innovations in idolatry, they're not actually believers, and they don't believe, and they must not believe in the hereafter. It's hard to see this, but because you want to believe. If somebody tells you, "Yeah, I believe in the day," you want to, you take their word for it and you believe it. But we know that as the Quran and God teaches us, there's things like lip service, and but these people, if they did believe in the hereafter and believe in resurrection, they would treat it extremely carefully, and actually be able to see these matters, and not just matters of circumcision. We're talking about that because it is a big deal, but I mean anything, because we see how many things and how many ways Satan has tricked people, inside, outside submission. I mean, it still has so many people tricked, because the vast, vast, vast majority of the world are not submitters. They rather, believe in God, but don't do so without committing some idolatry, which, really probably was, the case for all of us before coming into submission if we were following, one of the religions. So, rearranging our priorities, this life of this world is no more than an illusion and vanity, while the abode of the hereafter is far better for the righteous. Do you not understand? So yeah, this life is just an illusion and vanity. The hereafter is far better. So this, keeping this is the best perspective to have, because naturally we're gonna, God will help us make God, our God, and not anything else our God, and help us with our submission to Him alone. We know that you may be saddened by what they say. You should know that it's not you that they rejected, it's God's revelations that the wicked disregard. Messengers before you have been rejected, and they steadfastly persevered in the face of rejection. They were persecuted until our victory came to them. Such is God's system that will never change. The history of my messengers sets precedence for you. So this is things to look forward to. So we're gonna have to, it's gonna be the same for God's messengers and for the believers. But we have to steadfastly persevere, and go through these things, and we don't care about, even though how they make us feel. We don't want to make. We have to really work on this. No one is. We have to really work on not making our emotions or the way we feel our idols or our God, because then we won't make the best decisions. And so, the history has been set up. The history of God's messengers has been set as precedents for us, to learn from, and also to have things to look forward to, because we see here that the victory came to every single one of them. So, with this being said, if there's any comments or questions, please feel free. Sorry if I went over time. I'm not sure.
MashaAllah, thank you, brother Kustari.
Yeah, mashallah, thank you.
Yeah, mashallah. Like Brother John was talking about verse 19, and the footnote really exposes the falsehood of circumcision, like plainly and very direct. So like if any of them would just read this, and they won't have no excuse, if they still continue in the direction they're in, it's just ignorance, at this point. Like when Brother John was reading this verse and the footnote, and it's like I was just thinking that, it's like how can someone still like take that stand after reading this verse and the footnote and these verses, after this.
Are there any comments or questions about the verses?
Can you guys hear me?
Hey, yeah, we can hear you.
Oh,
Yeah, I can hear you. I meant to say other comments because I heard yours, brother Raphael. I
okay.
meant to say other comments and questions. Yeah, yeah, good point.
Yeah, much a good study, and I think these are great verses. That, as you said, remind us about why we can't uphold innovations. And the thing is, like, for some people, like you said, like they say, well, this is just a little thing; it doesn't matter. But they fail to understand that it's not about circumcision, really. I mean, circumcision, basically, I mean, it's just a subject like any other subject in general. But the main, but the main thing is, upholding the Quran alone, right? As we read the verses, I mean, you can't claim to be a submitter and uphold other sources besides Quran because, by definition, that makes you an idol worshiper, right? So sometimes, mashallah, I know everyone here fully understands the magnitude of this, right? But sometimes people just look at circumcision, I mean, as just like a side issue, like that they don't care about, and they're willing to look past it, or even like accept it as part of the religion, while not paying attention to the fact that um, it's about the principle, right? It's not about your genitals or what you think about it, in terms of what God says. It's about what God says about what it means to be a submitter. If you're going to uphold the Quran alone or not. I mean, if it wasn't about circumcision, where all these people, as it was shared earlier, so many people have failed, who uh, who who promised that they would be submitters from the point that they got the message, and so many of them failed. Right? It was about upholding the Quran alone. They decided to uphold the Quran alone, or they said they decided to uphold the Quran alone, but many of them didn't, and so they were exposed at that point as idol worshippers and hypocrites, because they're hypocrites also because they don't uphold the Quran alone, right? They don't worship God alone, and so it's really, I just really want to emphasize that, I mean, it's just, um, people look at it as this is just like another reason or another excuse for people to divide, which is sad, because that shows that these people fail to understand what the religion is about. Like, I mean, I've heard it from so many different people who want to be quote unquote united with other people, regardless. I mean, unity could be achieved by you. How about uniting with submitters based on the principle that you're going to uphold the Quran alone and you're going to worship God alone? Which sounds very basic, but there's some depth to it, obviously, right? If you're going to uphold other sources besides the Quran, things that are not mentioned by God here, and you're going to baselessly uphold them, you're baselessly following Hadith, then you're not being a submitter. And that doesn't represent submission. And that's not the religion of Abraham, right? That's distorting God's religion. I mean, it's a big thing, right? So I think for people to make these types of remarks, it just basically shows that their understanding of submission is greatly flawed, and they might not be guided in the right path.
Mashallah, right, brother.
it's a lot easier to be inclusive, and just to accept everything this and that goes, than taking a firm
Mm-hmm.
stand against the sifting. Just as we're told in the
Mm-hmm.
Quran how God will sift out the bad from the good and then pile the bad on top of it, on top of each other in hell, burn it in hell. And like that's actually a
Mm-hmm.
process. I mean, even like if you have to sift through, like you lose a bunch of marbles and sand or something, and you have to go digging through. I mean, it's more work than just accepting everything. Maybe I don't know how good how good that example was, but it's a lot easier basically, to how everyone is inclusive. And I mean, we see these examples and these parallels in churches today. I don't know about mosques and imams and stuff if they do that, but it's really prevalent. It's starting to become more prevalent in the United States, where and I mean a lot of people recognize it, but this isn't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why would you want to be included with these people? Because it's the age-old tale of if you have a bad apple, it's going to infect other apples. So you either want to clean the apple and cut off the bad pieces, and then it'll be okay. But yeah, I mean, under the excuse of unity, they're basically saying we want to unite with idol worshippers, but they have to first see that it is idol worship, upholding other sources in the Quran. And it's such a simple concept too, but maybe it shouldn't surprise us that most people flunk, or and it's not to say that they can't try again, but how most people miss the mark. Because I mean, just like I mean, all of us, and how we got sent here, and then I mean, even as we see today, the truth is perfect, and it's and the religion is very simple, but people complicate things, and um, but just like God alone, no idols, is the best. And then then there's people that still miss the mark, and that they complicate it with other things and idols. So it's so I think it's the
Mm-hmm.
same thing with where like look, it's very simple in the Quran, nothing but the Quran. And when I'm saying it's simple, I'm not talking, we know and we understand that it's not like simple in the sense of like, how we're not, it's very intelligent, the choice intelligence. We're not equating simple with, with any lesser of a meaning. We're just explaining it like in a sense where it's very simple, and the truth stands upon itself, and, it doesn't need anything to hold it up, like these lies and stuff and these innovations, like when somebody tells a lie, they just have to keep coming up with other lies to support it. And I mean, it's the same thing, even with these things, they're coming up with other excuses, one lie gets exposed, when you preach with this Quran, like these verses we just read, verse 19, and then people come up with another lie or excuse to try to that one failed, so they have to come up with something else like you explained under unity. But I mean, there's an answer to every single one of these things, every single one of these explanations and all their
Awesome.
as you mentioned, brother. I think it's important, like the principle, because that's if people focus on the principle at hand, then everything else becomes easy and obvious for them. So if it wasn't circumcision, if some other trap, let's say, people came up with or invented, it would easily get brushed out the window or it wouldn't work because, the principle remains that the Quran, nothing but the Quran alone, God alone. So um, that's I think what, as you mentioned, is missing with so many people, and it's also why we see other, I think, deviations from the religion um, that we've seen before. It's because they don't really truly believe in this principle and are happy with it too. You know, 'cause but that's like, I guess it's part of the way everybody has to be tested. I mean, this is the test that we all said we're gonna pass and we're gonna do well and worship God. But we can see that and that should tell us too that we need to be ever more so on guard for ourselves and for each other. Because look at all these other people that, um, and of course they may not think this way about themselves, but perhaps it's the lack of awareness and reverence in the first place, and them not taking these things seriously that cause them to go astray. You know, I mean, imagine if like, like the example you told me of that person, I mean, yeah, about it not being a big deal. I mean, that's not a good way to think. So, really like verse 32. About rearranging our priorities. How the life of this world is no more than illusion and vanity, while the abode of the hereafter is far better for the righteous. Do you not understand? What do y'all think about this verse?
Yeah, mashallah. I mean, verse 19 is really one of the most important verses for us to remember, regarding any sort of uh, dilemma like we come across. Every day we see people bring like lots of questions, right? And people have personal opinions and ideas. As the messenger says, people will try to divert you. And so we have this golden rule in the Quran that, we can easily tell, is it in the Quran? If it's not in the Quran, we don't care, right? And I mean, this makes our religion so simple, right? I mean, imagine if that wasn't the case, right? It would not, our religion, and we see in places where people don't understand this clearly how difficult they make their lives for them. I mean, they're constantly bickering and disputing with each other and arguing all the time about these issues, because they have not been able to draw the line, about the Quran alone. Um, but this is real blessing from God that when we become submitters, like we really appreciate that. God has made this religion so simple for us to understand. Um, that if it's in the Quran, we accept it. If it's not in the Quran, like what if this happens and that happens and this happens? I mean, is it in the Quran? If it's not in the Quran, don't worry about it. But obviously, this is God's system that only those people who really believe in the hereafter, who are truly seeking God alone, and not seeking to be, exalted on earth, or to become popular as religious preachers or saints or things like that. Those are the people that God gives them, the understanding, the clarity, the logic, and the guidance, to be able to distinguish these types of falsehoods, as they come. Yeah, and then also, mashallah, this verse 17 is a good reminder for us that, only God controls our happiness. Something that people are chasing, as the messenger says, the most elusive thing that, everybody's trying to um, run for, but, people don't understand the real secret. I mean, people are looking for the secret, but when you give them the secret, like they don't recognize it. they, they just walk away. But we understand that how God controls everything around us, and that includes our happiness. Something that we cannot achieve. No matter what we do, or I mean, everything comes from God, and He's the one that gives us that peace. Mashallah, we also talked about it in the Friday sermon, last Friday, on how that works, and which is why God's commemoration and zikr, praising His name and commemorating Him, uh, you know is a way for us to achieve that. The constant remembrance of God is going to grow our soul in leaps and bounds, and will give us the happiness, God willing, as we continue to make our souls stronger and stronger.
Mashallah. Yeah, when you said The Secret, it reminded me of that book. I think or that little fake audio video book that came out. Uh, I think I remember us talking about that. But a lot of people, like even my parents, they were like showed us the video when I was younger, and you heard a lot of people follow it, but it was the same thing. People just it's just people basically equating happiness with material stuff. The vanishing stuff. But yeah, the real happiness is comes from God.
Inshallah, true.
Yeah, and it's such a blessing too to understand these things, about like the temporariness of this life, and it's just an illusion. The hereafter is the life to strive for, because any like ounce of um, like worry or anxiety or things that we were accustomed to like before becoming submitters, and that can even come to us, of course, like even after submission. But really it's Satan that makes us worry about these things, because like when it's come up before for me, I've like quickly recognized it. I'll seek refuge, and then you remember God and think about the hereafter, and all these things like just become like they just poof, like the little cartoon, how it just goes away. It goes away. But yeah, it's a blessing to know this stuff, because we can see like how miserable people are. Like it's never enough. They're always chasing something that they think will bring them happiness, and there's a lot of different things that uh, you know it might bring, like a fictitious happiness, to the brain, whether it's through like intoxication, or it's a fake intoxic, or as we know and understand, or it's through these materials. But it's just like it's the same case. Like they're eating food that doesn't quench their hunger, or they're drinking, or I should say, it doesn't satisfy their hunger, and they're drinking water or fluids that doesn't ever quench their thirst. So that's why we see so many people, despite how many millions or billions they have, it's not enough. It's because they're never full, they're never filled up, they're never satisfied. So it's like eating, a meal, but then they're still as hungry as they were before, maybe even more hungry, and they're suffering even more, because we're told
Mhm.
even these things are punishments for the wicked. It can be punishments for the wicked as a consequence. So, mashallah, it's a real blessing uh, to like have this information and understand it.
Inshallah. Are there any other comments or questions from anyone? Or any off topic questions? Right, so I guess if there are no other comments or questions, God willing, we can conclude our study. Thank you, Brother John, for leading the study, and thank you, everyone, for participating. God willing, our next English Quran study would be on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. God bless you all. Assalamu alaikum.
God bless you all. Assalamu alaikum.
God bless you all. Salam alaikum.